She creates noise. She creates noise. She's moving through the world with a powerful voice. She creates noise. She creates. She creates noise. She creates noise.
Hi, you're listening to Sarah Nagurney, and welcome to She Creates Noise, a new podcast spotlighting women who power the music industry, coming to you from New York City. Now, if you don't know me yet, here's a little background. I'm a songwriter, producer, manager, educator, and mentor. I've written platinum-selling songs, had tracks on Grammy-nominated records, and released music on both major and independent labels. I've been a jazz singer, a jingle singer, toured with big bands, and became a pop artist, and I performed at festivals across the US, Europe, and Asia. These days, I focus on writing with and developing young talent. In the coming weeks, I'll be pulling back the curtain on the music industry's female changemakers. Some are close friends, others I'm just getting to know, but all have reshaped the business in profound ways. My goal here is to help listeners better understand how the music business really works, and just how instrumental women behind the scenes have been. You'll hear from both sides of the desk: artists, producers, managers, label executives, lawyers, women making things happen, often without the spotlight on them. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now let's dive in.
She creates noise.
Today's guest is Lachi. Lachi is a world-touring recording artist, a dynamic media personality, and award-winning social entrepreneur known for her charting collaborations with global brands and top names in dance music. Personally, I've known Lachi for maybe 8 years. We've kind of been in the same orbit. We have similar friends. She's super awesome. She's recognized by the Shorty Awards, Ad Age's Leading Women, and Afrotech's Future 50. Her groundbreaking advocacy has been featured in Billboard, Forbes, the New York Times, and USA Today, which named her a 2024 Woman of the Year. She was also named Innovator of the Year by Ad Color. As host of the PBS digital series Renegades and founder of RAMPed, which stands for Recording Artists and Music Professionals with Disability, Lachi is a leading voice for disability inclusion and identity pride in the music industry and beyond. She currently serves as a Recording Academy trustee and was formerly a board governor in the New York chapter. She sits on multiple industry boards and regularly keynotes and performs for major organizations, including at the White House, Amazon, and Google. And as July is Disability Pride Month, this will be airing then, and I'm very happy to time it for that exciting event. Thank you, Lachi. It's great to have you.
So great to be here. Yay.
Now, you've built an incredible career as both a recording artist and a fierce advocate for inclusion. Tell us how this activism came about. Did you envision your artistry and activism evolving together? Did one lead to the other? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
You know what? When I started in the music industry, I asked somebody if they could make me famous, and they said no. So then I decided to turn around and just make this whole amazing organization and platform that would say yes to people like me. So just for a little bit of background, I was born legally blind. I am a daughter of immigrants. I am a lover of all things entertainment, music, comedy, all of the things. And I remember when I asked my parents, I was like, I want to be a comedian and a musician and a writer and an entertainer, just like the folks on TV. And they were like, that's not how you spell doctor. So I didn't really have I don't want to say that my mother wasn't supportive, but, she wanted me to go a different route. And growing up as a young woman of color with a disability, I was super duper outcast. And I turned to the keys, right, for just to try to figure out my own emotions and to try to help the world figure myself out. And I found my confidence in music. But as I got older and as I wanted to really get into the industry, it wasn't the easiest. Folks didn't understand me. Folks didn't get it. And I didn't understand myself. I didn't know what my place would be here. And as a woman who's blind, I had to use a cane, but I didn't use my cane because I didn't want to alienate myself. But the problem was I was actually shooting myself in the foot because I wasn't performing my best. right? Because I wasn't accommodating myself and I wasn't asking folks for accommodation, just to not, ruffle feathers. And as I got into bigger and better rooms in the industry, I started realizing, bro, I need to get my shit together. And so I did. I started really leaning in, and I started to realize that I was a working professional musician / artist, and I didn't see other people like me up in my stratosphere. And that was really the beginning of what eventually became Ramped, which is my big sort of organization that supports working music professionals and creators with disabilities and neurodivergence, all the while working on my career.
She creates noise.
So, long story short, the music industry was not built for people like me to get yeses. And so I decided to build an industry for people like me to get yeses.
That's so impressive.
With that, it just becomes natural to have my art and my advocacy blend.
That's something I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, Ramped, which I understand it's to champion disability culture in the music industry.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you've been sort of covering that disability culture. How do you see the industry needing to shift?
At the end of the day, the music industry, it strives off of exploitation and, looks and superficialness and things like that. And that is already starting to shift. We're starting to see authenticity. We're starting to see people caring about their mental health, or at least starting to talk about it. Yes, mental health is a bit of a buzzword right now, but I think it's good to start getting folks thinking about how they're feeling and recognizing that maybe they have anxiety or depression and that they can talk about it. And so Ramped is coming at this really sort of crux in folks recognizing their identity, recognizing that that can be a part of their art, also recognizing that they're a human being and not just a production machine. Right? Just making, building, and not taking time to heal and grow. And so really what Ramped is essentially trying to do is we're trying to work with the music industry, like work with different music giants, music companies, music labels, etc., to equip them with the tools and resources needed to support working music professionals with disabilities. It's not just a one-off thing. So it's not necessarily Music Cares, where they help you out of a situation if you become temporarily disabled or you get sick. It's not Backline, because it's not about helping you seek therapy or anything of that sort. What it is on the one hand, we're a consultancy group, so we consult the music industry, whether that's trainings, whether that is consultations on just how to be more disability inclusive, not just for the quote unquote disabled population, but within their work constraints, within their crew or their team or their staff, to recognize the disability and neurodivergence. It's okay within the team you serve, the people you serve, and the people you serve with. On the other hand, we're also a networking platform. So if anyone who identifies as a person with a disability or a person with neurodivergence or a chronic condition or mental health condition, they're free to join the network. And it's peer vetted. So you're kind of vetted as a working professional or a working creator, so that we can really kind of have some kind of reins on this thing, or else everyone will eventually be like, wait, hold on, I have something.
I know. Isn't that true? I think everyone should join right now.
Exactly. Well, it's so funny that you just say that, because, at the end of the day, when we say disability, yeah, sure, it encompasses physical disability, sensory disability. You generally think of folks who are blind or deaf or has a wheelchair or maybe autism. But when we think of things like neurodivergence, that also includes ADHD, dyslexia. When we talk about mental health conditions, that includes anxiety, that includes depression, that includes bipolar. When we talk about chronic conditions, that can include everything from arthritis to diabetes to asthma to lupus to chronic back pain. Right? Immune deficiencies. It starts to get to a point where everyone's like, all right, so we're all disabled. Now what? Right? So we peer vet to make sure folks are in the music industry. But I like to say that because disability is humanity. Like, we all have something that God or Gaia or whoever gave us so that we can overcompensate, be different, be unique, use that to innovate, to have drive, to be determined, to be problem solvers. And that's why disability has evolved with us all this time. And so really what Ramped is trying to shift, to answer your question, is the stigma associated with the thing that makes us the strongest.
She creates noise.
so interesting and such an unusual outlook on mankind, really. And so, how we all are the same in a way. Really impressive. You're so articulate and you really present what you're doing so beautifully. You've also hosted PBS's Renegades.
Yes.
And you're serving on the Recording Academy board.
Yes.
These are two huge platforms. And I know I've heard you talk a little bit about some of the things you've done with the Recording Academy and the Grammys. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
With Renegades, really quickly, that was a really fun situation. So it is a PBS American Masters series that recently won a Webby. So we're very excited about that. It's a digital series that celebrates unsung heroes with disabilities that help shape America. The entire crew were folks with disabilities. The series creator was a blind woman of color. And so it was really awesome to be the host and the front face of something that was just so awesome and instrumental and monumental. And yes, we were a digital series, but we also got to air on broadcast. So we're there and we're in rotation. You'll see my smiling face up on your PBS screen.
Yeah, I'm going to check that out, actually.
Absolutely. And
I use PBS Passport a lot.
do you?
Oh, yeah, I love it.
Either way, we're on the PBS app, we're on the PBS YouTube. So if you can't catch it live, you can definitely just check it out for free online. And then as for the Recording Academy, yes, girl, it's so funny. I didn't really become active until 2019. Right before COVID, I did my first district advocate day, which is where the entire Recording Academy gets together and talks to their local sort of district person in the government.
I think I saw you there, actually.
Yeah, and we talk about whatever the Recording Academy is supporting at the time, whether it's the HITS Act, whether it's, at that time, I think it was the Music Modernization Act, and a few others. And I remember they were like, oh, we're going to need people to come and just sort of say your story and just sit in front of a congressperson. But I took it super literally and I memorized the bills and I looked at what my congressperson had voted for in the past that were similar. So when we got there, everybody was saying their stories and we were going in a circle and the congressperson was there, their staff person was there. And when it was my turn, I'm sitting there with a notebook full of notes and I go over it and I'm like, well, here's what you supported in the past. And this is really important to us because if we modernize, and so I went deep in and they were just like, you belong in DC.
Yes.
And I was like, that's definitely not where I'm going. These heels do not do well in a swamp. So, and then the Recording Academy noticed and they were like, okay, well, let's pluck this one up. So I ended up joining the advocacy committee for the New York chapter. And while I was there, they were like, hey, what do you want to talk about? And that was the first time, because this was just 2020, right? And it was the first time where I got to say, I want to talk about disability and inclusion. And they were just like, it was Sharon Tapper at the time. And she was just like, okay, let's get you a panel. Let's write a proposal. And I was like, holy, what? So I wrote a proposal. We kicked it up the chain. Eventually, it turned into this huge digital panel that we did opposite the leadership of the Recording Academy talking about disability. And it was so funny because nobody had shit to do, right? Because it was COVID. So that ended up blowing up and becoming this amazing thing. And then that was essentially how Ramped started. And then as we kind of fast forward, I was just super active. I became co-chair of advocacy. And then because Ramped had started so closely to the Recording Academy, they were our first sort of partner. And in 2022, we consulted the Recording Academy to have ASL, sign language on the red carpet, we were the ones that kind of advocated for that circular dais now that you guys see during the award ceremony. That is actually what do you want to call it? It's an accessible dais. So actually a wheelchair user could go up there if they wanted to win an award. And so they were our first sort of partner, which got us on the New York Times, which got us on Billboard, which got us on Forbes. And, Ramped was still just amorphous. So we didn't even have a bank account and we were receiving funds and grants. So I definitely have the Recording Academy to thank. And then 2 months after that, I got elected to the board. So I've been on the New York chapter board since 2022. Since then, I've created a disability and inclusion task force in the New York chapter. I've served on the Songwriter and Composers wing. I've served on the Dance Music Committee. I served on the National Membership Committee. I've served pretty much everywhere. I am very well known all over my chapter, but I love it. I love it because I always see it as an honor and a privilege, especially as somebody who constantly builds their own table, constantly, if a door is slammed, I build my own door, or climb out a window. And so to actually be in the thick of the industry and getting to talk about what I'm talking about, getting elected to trustee with everyone knowing what I do, right? There's nothing hidden. I'm not like afraid to talk about the things I like to talk about, and everyone knows me. And then they still elected me to trustee, right? And so it's that knowing what my platform is. And so it's just an honor and it's such a privilege. So I take my service at the Recording Academy super seriously. And I have a lot of friends there. It's definitely my family and my home. And again, it is a huge, huge friend to the Recording Academy. Shout out to the Dream Team, the DEI team, Ricky and Jessica and all those folks over there. It's just been really great working with them.
She creates noise.
Yes, I love being involved with the Recording Academy. I also mentor for them. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful place to give support and be involved with. I was trying to think of there's tons of things I could ask you. I know I'd spoken about, on a lighter note, just thinking of something that fans would be surprised to learn about you.
Oh, wow. Something that fans would be surprised to learn about me. Well, the first thing I'll say is that I am everything is out there. For the most part, there's just a lot of stuff out there that I don't kind of keep hidden. But an interesting thing that I think people would know about me is, should I share this story? I have so many little like story tidbits.
I did talk to Arthur about it. He picked this question as one he thought would be fun for you.
Well, I mean, there was a time when I went to the White House, because there was like 2 years, when Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were in the White House, where I don't know what happened, but we were all just sister girl, girlfriend, hangout folks. And they invited me to the White House like a million times. So I was at the White House more than my own house, right? To the point where I was like, I knew how to roam the halls.
That's crazy. This is something I didn't know.
Oh, yeah, girl. Always. I went to the White House in 2024 alone. I went to the White House like 6 times.
Oh my God. Wow.
And they would send postcards and it would be signed by, Joe, Jill, and Willow the dog and stuff like that. So I go there all the time, and we would always be the best dressed. So I would wear like a pink gown and have a pink cane and just be walking down the White House halls. I knew like all of the Secret Service and all of the Navy staff that would be outside. That's a fun little tidbit that, I would love to share.
That's crazy. I had no idea. I was going to ask you a little bit about you visiting the White House, but I didn't know that you practically live there.
Yeah.
It's impressive. Wow.
Well, I mean, honestly, too, because they would invite me to stuff that didn't really like make sense. It would just be like, why am I at this random, NATO summit? But it would just be like, I think they just liked how fun I was. It's this young woman of color with a cane and dressed to the nines. And every time I show up, it's a different outfit and it's some crazy heels. And I mean, I think, loosely they liked my advocacy work. Like the disability inclusion.
You're just
that
great
I brought.
to have around is what it was.
But I was just a fun little person to have around. And so they just kept bringing me back.
Wow. That's definitely something I didn't know. I know you also are involved with Glam Canes. Please tell us a little bit about that.
So Glam Canes is really just the best thing ever. So what a glam cane is, it's a bejeweled rhinestone cane, whether it's a blind cane, whether it's a mobility cane, whether it's a quad walker or whatever, right? And they started out as just canes for the blind, and we're expanding now. But the reason Glam Canes came about was, when I was younger, let's say 8, 7, that type of deal, the social workers came to my mom and they said, she's going to start needing to use a cane. And I was just like, no way. They brought me the cane and I was like, that's not happening. I'm already being picked on in school. Like, I don't want to add to it. So I go my whole life not using the cane. And I remember one time this A&R guy invites me to like this gala party. Right. And so I was still trying to break at that time. Right. So I was like, oh my God, I'm invited to a gala. Oh my God. So I go and it's like a dimly lit sort of cocktail hour. And I get there and I don't know anyone and I don't have a cane or anything to navigate in it. And I can't really see. So I hang on the corner and then I eventually leave without talking to anyone. And later I found out that A&R had tried to wave me over and felt snubbed when I didn't respond and when I just kind of darted off. And I lost that opportunity. Like it was, we were talking about a potential signing, right? So I was super devastated and I knew something had to change. So I started using just the little plain Jane white cane and I started realizing that it was helping me get around. But then I started being like, listen, I'm wearing these gorgeous gowns. I'm wearing these wonderful dresses, as I got into bigger and better parties. And I was like, okay, this little white and red cane doesn't match everything. So I'm going to need it to be an extension of my personality and my outfits. And lo and behold, Glam Canes came about. And now when I go to parties or cocktail hours, I can navigate, right? Because I've got the cane. But B, it's a conversation starter. People know to come to me, right? Instead of waving and not. I mean, you've seen me at these parties.
Oh my God. It's the way you dress head to toe in every way. You're just unbelievable.
It's all part of it. And so what ended up happening was people started seeing me with the canes and they were like, where can, I get one for my daughter? Or, where can I get one? And so we started selling them. And now we see them everywhere. And it really my heart grows 3 sizes too large whenever I see a young girl or guy graduating with a glam cane or on a first date or just taking it to work or going to a fancy ball or gala. And so it's just been a great way to not only celebrate my difference and my disability, but to combat the erasure, right, that I'd been contributing to myself, right, by not using it. One thing I wanted to say too is like something that a lot of people don't know is that only 15% of folks who are blind are totally blind. So 85% of blind folks have some form of vision. As well, only 2 to 5% use a cane or a dog, right? So the symbols of blindness are only used by 2 to 5%. I don't know how good you are at math, but the way that all kind of comes together is that the majority of blind people are walking around without an aid due to stigma. And so they're just kind of freeballing it out here, right? And that's part of what Glam Canes is trying to do. Trying to be like, hey, look, you need this, so use it, and you may as well look stylish while you're using it.
That's great. What a great idea. Love that.
Glamcanes.com, guys. Glamcanes.com.
That's something I'm happy to advertise. Just finishing up a bit, you've had this incredible chart success, speaking at the White House and multiple visits to the White House. You've navigated pop culture and policy. For younger artists coming up, what's the most honest advice you'd give to someone building a career about, being authentic and impactful?
Well, first and foremost, never compromise who you are. Like, never compromise. I made so many compromises, and what's going to end up happening is you will eventually get to a point where you stop compromising and you feel this immense liberation. So I wish I could have told my previous self not to compromise. And so this is my way of doing that. Secondarily, I always say, listen, really work on your craft. Hone it, know it, love it, and be about it. Because I don't believe there's any such thing as luck. I believe that there's being prepared and putting yourself out there, and the right person will eventually see you. I mean, luck is just a numbers game. But if you are prepared and you're ready and you're that it already, eventually that situation will happen for you if you continue to put yourself out there. So it requires 2 things. It requires being awesome at your craft, but it also requires putting yourself out there. Those are 2 difficult things. It's not easy to put yourself out there. What makes it easy is if you don't compromise yourself. A lot of the times we're so afraid to put ourselves out there because we're afraid of potentially judgment or someone not liking what we're doing or whatnot. But if you accept the deepest part of yourself that maybe society tells you to hide or society tells you is limiting, and you just accept it for the beauty it is, that is the truest form of authenticity. And it really helps a lot of that anxiety sort of just melt off, and nobody can tell you nothing. So those would be my 2 things of advice.
Authenticity it cuts through. I mean, when people are really being who they are, everyone notices.
Fortune favors the authentic, and it's also infectious. It makes other people feel super comfortable, and then they want to be around you more.
Yeah, totally. It's, so interesting to speak to you. I just wonder if there's anything that we missed that you'd really like to mention.
No, I mean, honestly, we've covered so many things. I will say that if you or someone you know is a music professional or a music creator that has a disability, neurodivergence, come check us out at ramped.org. That's rampd.org. Check me out at Lachi Music, LACHIMUSIC on all socials. I am constantly releasing music. We just released several singles in a row and releasing an acoustic EP called the Uncomfortable EP, so check that out. And lastly, we will be releasing, I'm currently writing a book with Penguin Random House called I Identify as Blind, which will be out top of January, but we're going to be promoting the crap out of it in a couple of months here. So please stay tuned. Constant dates, always touring, always speaking. So keep it locked on our website and just stick with us. Stick with the kid.
Absolutely. And I will put some of these links and anything you can share with me. I'll put some of these links in the website.
Absolutely.
But also in the podcast when it is releasing.
Perfect.
And it's just been so interesting to speak with you. And I know I'll see you around as I always do. But thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast.
She creates noise.
I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Heard City, the premier audio post-production company servicing the advertising, motion picture, and television industries right here in NYC. I'd also like to thank Ann Tello, aka XO Ann, for singing the She Creates Noise theme that I wrote. Thanks for listening to She Creates Noise. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and share. I want to thank the team here, Blair Reinley, Yelena Stavanovich, Emily Wilson, and the Master of Engineering and Grammy-winning Cooper Anderson. We'll see you next time.
She creates noise. She creates noise. She creates noise. We hear her voice. She creates noise.